you tell.
Okay, bet. Okay.
Do you have like an intro? How are we gonna do this?
Don't have an intro. We're jumping right in. I feel like
It's like a regular podcast where you
it's
just
like
like starts in the middle of a conversation type?
exactly. That's it.
Got it.
That's it. Okay. You said parents. Elaborate on that. Do you think that's an essential aspect? Having,
Essential? No, not essential. But I do
but
believe that my desire for greatness comes from comes from some sort of crippling insecurity that was given to me by parents that were never able to acknowledge my skills, right? There's no logical reason to run a marathon or even want to run a marathon. It's not angels pushing me to the finish line, dog. It's that I need to be the best. You know what I'm saying? There's probably something there. I was mostly joking, right? We're mostly joking, but at the same time, there's got to be some sort of high achievers don't come from very high functioning families. I can see that being a thing.
Do you think there's like anyone who was raised perfectly though? Like isn't everyone, because everyone is raised by someone else who's also human, who's intrinsically raised by someone else. And like at a certain point, since we're human and we make mistakes, like everyone's going to be a little fucked up in some ways. Some people just, I guess, hide it better. And then
I think you're right. I think you're right. There's a difference between having what you need and doing it perfectly. And I think lots of people's needs are met better. But I think in general, even with shitty parenting, with no history of war in this last generation of parents, right? We don't eat babies like the Middle Ages anymore, dog. I mean, though that was more not real. That was more ironic than anything else. But that was parents have gotten better over the decades, over the generations. I think across, the average parent is better, but at the same time, yeah, we have basic emotional needs, and I don't think that everybody's met, especially a creative dog. The most crazy, most emotionally demanding, creative children. I don't know if anybody has enough love in their hearts to meet their needs.
That is
creative kids' needs. I don't know. There's something in us, I feel like that it's not a bad thing either. It's funny at the top of creative music games, you kind of just see like all the artists that are doing the best, that are like borderline narcissistic if they aren't fully narcissistic, that like that doesn't come from a necessarily healthy place, but they figured it out. It's turned into a healthy
right
thing,
well, so
that away.
Yeah, right. So it's a couple things like that just popped in. So like obviously you have the Tiger Woods, the Michael Jordan, even like to your point, there's almost like this feeling of, I guess, okay, the first thing let me say is like, is it a pair? I don't have kids, so I'm speaking from speculation and just kind of like a train of thought here. But like, is it the parent's job to fulfill the child's needs or to equip the child with the tools to fulfill their needs? Because at a certain point, child's on its own is ideally, obviously when you're an infant, like you're dependent. And to your point, like if you lack something in that context with regards to needs, basic needs, because your parents weren't able to give you then yeah, there's maybe some shit you're overcoming. There's an Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix, which is fascinating. I've really been obsessed with it. It's really inspiring. I think you really like it. But it's like these high performers. He's like he revolutionizes bodybuilding. Like Michael Jordan revolutionizes the sport of basketball. Tiger Woods. It's like they almost make the thing popular, or even more popular. And to your point, it's almost like there's this need that they have to like overcome, or like there's this podcast, How to Take Over the World, and I just listened to there's part 1, part 2, part 3 on Steve Jobs. He talks about he has this kid. He's in his like 20s, I think, and the kid's name is Lisa, and he literally blocks it out of his mind because he's like, I can't have a kid right now. I'm building Apple. And so for like the first 5 to 10 years of his life, he's like not that even though if he ignores it, they finally do a paternity test. Even though it comes back, he's the father. He's like, that's not like, and then he names a software or hardware program Lisa, and he creates some acronym for it, like LISA or something. But like, there's this idea almost where it's like you have, like that's almost like sick. But then we're talking on an Apple computer. I have an Apple iPhone, so it's like you almost have to be borderline, right? Like, not that I don't think that is the way to become successful, but it's like almost if you have to be so nothing can get in the way, right? It's like a marathon. Like, oh, my foot hurts. I don't care. We haven't completed the goal yet. Kobe, the job's not done. Like, you almost have to have this like I succeed or I die mentality, which to your point is like not common or like average and rubs people the wrong way, I think.
Yeah. So, first off, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a children's psychologist.
Sure.
I am just a parent of two children. One of them is special needs. He's got Down syndrome. He's my homie, and he's um, and I do have some thoughts, but I think it's fair to say, and no parent knows what they're doing. No parent. But I have taken the responsibility to make a decision on how I want to raise my kids. Regardless of whether or not it's right, we're going to find out. I've just taken a decision. And that decision is the responsibility of my children at the age that they are now, which is 2 and 5. Their responsibility is to play. That is their responsibility. There's a lot of learning that comes from play. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about the importance and value of play as animals, as human beings, and I'm going to play with them. As they grow to age and through maturation, I want to make sure I'm going to take the slightly more tougher love route. I've decided to do this. And this is coming from a guy who loves his children more than anything in the world. It's going to hurt me so much, but I am emotionally prepared to watch my children get hurt and see them overcome them. I am not going to do anything for them. I'm not even going to give them any money in my will. I don't even believe in that. I'm not going to do anything for them to give them an advantage. I believe that the skills that are learned through the power of, I want them to have confidence in their resilience. I want them to, well, hopefully I raise them enough to not want to run a marathon. But if they happen to be running one, I want them to have enough confidence. I want them to have enough confidence where they know for a fact that no matter what, they can finish. And I want them to have that look in their life, that outlook in their life. And I really hope that as a parent, I can successfully create environments and let him grow up on his own without me controlling too much, enough that they can develop into something of a responsible adult.
Yeah. Do you have a desire for them to be like great? Like you have that desire for yourself to be great?
I want them to be happy.
Right.
I don't give a shit about great.
And like
what is great?
Right.
What is, I don't even fulfilled, I think partially. Yeah.
You could be happy. You could be happy smoking weed all day.
I think fulfilled is better than I think fulfilled is actually a really great word.
I've been thinking about that recently because everyone's like, oh, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. And it's like, happy is fleeting. Fulfilled is like meaningful and is like what you like. And if life is meaningful, life is good. Even if it's not all good, even if there's shit, if you have fulfillment and meaning, and I think like now no, I feel that.
Oh, for sure. I just came out of a super long and honestly quite annoying depression. Started like really long, few years, just totally out of my mind, dog. Everything, it was everybody else's fault but mine, and then now I'm the happiest I've ever been. I truly believe I'm happy now. I've never been happier now because in retrospect I know what misery feels like. So I don't think I've ever been happier in my life because I've never been more depressed in my life before. And when I finally figured that shit out, oh my gosh, my conscience is clear and I know I deserve all the happiness that is coming to me. Without that clear conscience, I started running, I started taking responsibility for my life, I started pointing the blame finger towards myself, giving myself the power, and then all of a sudden my conscience is clear enough to accept all the happiness the world is trying to give me. And I think that is a big step in the right direction. I think that a lot of people have a lot of opportunities to find joy and happiness, but they don't feel like they deserve it like inside. They push it away. They reject it.
Why? Okay, talk about that. Let's talk about that.
I think it takes a clear conscience, and whatever that means. Everybody's got different value systems.
Yeah.
People think that things are bad. People think that things are good. Oftentimes it comes, especially in North America, it comes from a religious background. I think people have values that were either given to them by their parents or they've developed on their own, and they have conscience. And I think that in order to feel a healthy amount of a superiority complex, meaning that you have the confidence to deserve more because it comes from taking up responsibility and doing and having confidence in your ability to do hard things. And it comes from a clean conscience. If you take money or if you take recognition in a way that you know on the inside was unfair, eventually, I believe, and more so, I hope that you know that it'll come crashing down.
100%. Yeah.
Even if it's not true, I think it's better as us humans to believe it. It's better to believe that good comes from a healthy conscience. And I'm going to tell you right now. Yeah.
Well, it's ultimately an internal game. Like there's this quote from David Senra, and he talks about like the bullshit about prestige. And I put it in my newsletter last week with like his quote, because like he like this idea like prestige is predicated on other people thinking about you and no one is thinking about you. Ultimately, who's thinking about you is yourself. And if you don't feel good about yourself, like that is coming back to like happiness and fulfillment, is like, what the fuck are you doing shit for if it's not for yourself? And not in a selfish way, but in a self-respect way, to your point about how you feel about yourself and like your conscience on yourself ultimately. I like, okay, so what changed? Like how did you go for, or like, how did you get to that place initially? And then how did you come out of that?
Yeah. So number one, what you were talking about was Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. Most people are in their own world. They don't even realize they're fucking up. Have somebody else's. They don't even realize it. They're just living their life. They're too worried about how good they look to everyone else that they don't realize how much everybody else actually doesn't care that much.
Right.
Anyway, but going back to what you were talking about, how did I get to that super depressed moment? I think that it was a lot of bullshit. I think it was a lot of accidents. It was 3 to 4 terrible things all happening at the same exact time. 3 to 4 things that each on its own was a horrible thing that would have sent me into shock. That did send me into shock. I actually had a couple mental breakdowns during that time, which triggered fear. Obsessed fear had overcome me. I was afraid to make friends. I was afraid to lower my guard. I was afraid. I felt like a failure. I felt like I wasn't a good father, a good husband. I didn't know what I was doing in my life. I lost track of what I wanted, and I no longer knew the direction I wanted to take my life. All I wanted was to be happy, but I didn't know really what I wanted. Even then, I didn't even know if I wanted to be happy. And this is interesting too, because I got everything that I wanted and more in my first year of moving to LA. And then I found out it wasn't worth the sacrifice to get there. And that's a whole different thing. Hitting goals way too fast. I hit goals way too fast.
So interesting.
And that made me miserable.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, hitting my goals, working with the celebrities, getting recognized, didn't solve the issues that I thought it would solve, and it created issues I didn't realize it would create. I hit the goals, get to the finish line to realize, holy shit, this finish line looks way different than what I thought it was. And then I look back and see all the things that I sacrificed to get there and be like, I don't think that was worth it. And then I'm at the finish line where I'm see the finish line now, and now I'm questioning whether or not I want to keep going. Now you question, I no longer trusted myself to know what I wanted. What's the next step? I have no idea. That was one of the 4 things that spiraled me into a deep depression. And for like 2-3 years, it was absolutely horrendous. Not knowing what I wanted, feeling like a failure, seeing the sacrifices that I made, working way too hard, not making enough money, financial adversity as well. I had to cut ties with my parents. I've had to, that was tough. I almost got into big legal battles. I had roommates that were my friends for years before that stabbed me in the back brutally stabbed me in the back out of nowhere for no reason. It was a wild ride, and it took. It wasn't until it took a few things. It was when I decided. I was reading David Goggins, and the cool thing about David Goggins is that he's crazy. And very few people in this world are as crazy as he is. But one thing that he does successfully is he makes you feel like a bitch. And he's like, that's crazy, but I can do a little bit more at least.
Right.
And he put things into perspective for me.
Yeah.
He talked about the abuse, and I was abused growing up as well. And like, not that I identify as that, I don't give a shit about that. That's fine. But the point is, like when I was reading it, I started running. I started reading his book and I started running. I was like, holy shit. Holy shit. Like if he can do this, I can do this. And it was kind of a little bit of that, like that arrogance, necessary arrogance. You know, if he can do it, I can do it. So I started running. Little did I know that running would trigger me waking up, making my bed every morning, brushing my teeth right on time, you know, wearing socks before I go into the office, whatever it takes to get in the zone, right? It made me start to recognize that I need to get better with my marriage, with my wife. I need to be better with my religious commitments, whatever that may be, right? I need to get that shit lined up. I need to either do it or not, and not fuck around in the middle, in that gray area, pretending like I do, but not. You know what I'm saying? And I needed to get everything back in order. Slowly running triggered the next thing because it made me realize, it gave me that little bit of confidence that I needed, that I'm the type of guy that can do hard shit.
Right.
I'm the type of guy that can deal with that. So then I recognized that the difference between me and the future great me is just time. I've kind of eliminated every other thing that could stop me from great me. It's time. I'm able to do hard shit. And it gave me that confidence and that sense of control, which is extremely valuable for young men and men. It's that sense of control of your own life.
Yeah.
I took it back. I did a lot of hard things. I got my shit together, and I'm still getting my shit together, and improvement became a game. Another thing that I did is I did the hard thing of taking responsibility to find a therapist. And anybody that needs therapy knows how fucking hard it is to find one and stick to one. Especially as someone that identifies as a masculine man, it is difficult to find a therapist that works for you, and it's difficult to stick it out because you have to eat off some of your pride. I fucking stuck it out. I'm still in it. The weekly therapy, I believe, is along with the running, along with the self-improvement, I am the happiest that I've ever been. More importantly, the happiest that I've ever been right now, I feel like I have deserved it. I deserve it. I've earned this shit, you know? Which makes me even happier. Makes me grateful. Super fucking grateful.
I love it. I fucking love it. I love your passion. Okay, wait, take me back. So I know we talked about it briefly, but you lived in like Hawaii for some time.
I did.
I know you lived in Utah. So like, where did you grow up ultimately?
Okay, ready for my life story? Real quick.
Yeah,
I'll be really
please.
brief.
Give me the rundown. Yeah.
Born in Naha, Okinawa, Japan. Lived there till I was about 4 or 5. Started kindergarten in Chicago. I lived in one area of Chicago, a suburb of Chicago called Arlington Heights for 5 years. For the next 5 years after that, I moved to a place called Arlington Heights, suburbs of Chicago. That's where I learned to love music. That's why I do what I do now.
Tell me more. Wait, pause right there real quick, and then continue with high school.
I mean, Chicago, dog. It was Lupe Fiasco, Kanye West, Rihanna. It was Chris Brown was Virginia at the time, but it was that mid to early 2000s when R&B and hip hop was starting to become cool. It was the first time Soulja Boy hit white neighborhoods. Rap music hit white suburban neighborhoods. You know what I'm talking about? It was the first time that white kids, dog, in suburbia Chicago was messing with rappers.
It was also the internet. I think part of it was like,
dog. It was MySpace. It was fantastic.
You had access to things that you wouldn't see on a day-to-day because of the internet. And now you feel a part of cultures that, you know what I mean? Like,
oh, dude. And it was the time when there's this Korean dude who I related to heavily because he was Asian. I lived in an area where there was no other Asian. So it's like there's this Asian host on the radio, 96.3, Julian on the radio, spun those Chris Brown, Rihanna, Kanye records every night. And I remember cuddling up next to the radio, waiting for him, feeling a little bit of connection because we're both Asian, you know. And I remember loving music. I grew up with music, man. My parents both love music, but they're just appreciators. They're not musicians. They're just appreciators. And it was a big deal for me. I always sung in the car. I was just one of those annoying kids who just never stopped singing. I go to high school. I'm in Virginia for high school. We moved to Virginia, right next to Washington, D.C.
Do you have siblings?
I'm the oldest of four. So I'm in high school in Virginia. And sophomore year of high school, my friend asked me to join a band because I'm in choir, and he thinks that's enough that's enough. You're musical enough to be able to learn bass. Bass isn't hard. First off, fuck that, bass is tough. Okay.
Choir to bass. not that far
Yeah,
removed.
and I'm in high school. What's high schoolers not bored enough to join a band?
Sure.
I thought this would be a fun high school experience, and I did. Changed my life. I started my first time in garage band and in Cubase, got with Dawes, started recording my drummer's drum kit, got really involved. That was the first time I fell in love with the process of producing, recording, creating recorded audio and music. It was so fascinating to me. Man, we put out some shitty records. What a great time to be alive, man. We fucking sucked, but it was blissful. It was
Right.
enjoyable. Never take that away from me, you know. Did college after high school. Actually, I lived in Japan as a missionary for 2 years. Lived in Nagoya, Japan. So I went back to Japan. I've always been a native speaker, so I went back to Japan for 2 years. Hung out, met some cool people. Went to school in Hawaii for my first year of college. That's where I met my wife. We got married in Japan, and then I transferred schools to Utah. We got married pretty quick because I told her while we were dating, it's like, hey, I'm gonna transfer to Utah. So we were either gonna take this seriously and talk about dating, talk about marriage, or I'm gonna have to dip and we should break this off now because I love you too much to have to suffer for that later after 3 more months of being together, you know, whatever it was. So I got married pretty quick. We committed to that. I had no commitment issues. I'm big into committing into whatever your gut tells you. And I trust my gut a lot. I'm really good at trusting my gut. That's the one thing I'm really prideful about. All right. And then also comes from a lot of experience. I'll tell you a little bit. Sure. The dating life thing doesn't matter, but I went on over 150 dates, just dates, no holding hands, no kissing, just taking different over 100 different girls out every single weekend for 3 years in high school to get back at my next girlfriend who I wanted. And it kind of
That's crazy. Wait, tell me more about this.
So a girl broke my heart in sophomore year. Probably it wasn't her fault. It was probably my fault. I was just being an insecure little bitch. But either way, I want to make her feel ugly. So I decided to take a different girl on a date every single weekend. Just a date. No kissing, no holding hands. It's literally just a fun excuse to hang out. So I took a different girl on a date every single weekend for 3 years after that. So between 100 and 150 different girls. I did a lot of repeats. But it started to be this fun thing. People would take me on blind dates. It was like, it kind of, the first month, it was like weird. And then the second month, it was like kind of fun. And then the third month, it was like a challenge. You know, it's like, we can keep going.
Right.
Keep going. So by the time I married my wife, I will say that I had enough dating experience in my life to know exactly, to understand more fully what kind of relationship I wanted to
That's so crazy.
Grow, and as well as what kind of personalities worked well with mine,
yeah,
and what kind of personalities did not work well with mine. So by the time I found my wife, it was the last secret ingredient. I did not realize this because I was super against marrying Japanese women. But being Japanese, I didn't realize how much having a Japanese partner and a woman with Japanese values would align with. It was the last piece of the puzzle. She had everything else. I didn't realize that it was just being Japanese, was having those cultural values that we talked about earlier. They aligned so correctly in a way that I've never noticed before, that it was just a no-brainer. Of course we were going to get married. We got married, I did a whole summer doing like summer sales. So I lived in like Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. Met the most racist people in my entire life in Tennessee. That was crazy. That's a whole nother conversation. Then I moved to Utah, where I lived and did college for 5 years to drop out and move to LA.
So you never graduated?
I technically did not. I was in my last couple semesters. It's a weird story. I started a bunch of businesses, and that's where I found my love to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My love for starting businesses was in Utah. And one of the companies that we started was doing really, really well. One of the few. I mean, out of the 6 or 7 businesses that I've started, that was like one of the 3 that are still going. In this one, it was a marketing agency, and basically the CEO, I was such an integral part. I was one of 3 owners, the 3 people that started the company, and we had hired on some big dogs. We had hired a headhunter, which is expensive, to hire on our first employee that we offered $90,000 a year for salary, which for a bunch of 22-year-old kids running a business, that's no small salary that we had to take on the responsibility of. On top of the fee for the headhunter, which is ridiculous. And started to get shit straight. And then the CEO came up to me, my good friend. He's like, Dee Kei, you're making enough money right now. We've got this figured out. Like, you got to either quit school or kind of step away from the day-to-day work, and we'll hire someone else. We'll replace you. And so I decided to quit school. Along with, I didn't want to go to school. I was pursuing a degree in music. So those are excuses. I still think I should have finished, but at the same time, I think I made the right decision for the things that were given to me. the options that were given to me. And yeah, I never finished school. I decided to stop actively working for the company anyway to move to LA and pursue music. So here I've been in LA now for coming up on 4 years, doing music full time, nothing but music.
Crazy. How long have you been to music full time? 4 years.
No. I've done music full time. I've done other stuff, but I've been doing music full time, like paying rent with music since my sophomore year of college.
Crazy.
I started young. I started my first studio when I was a sophomore in college. So for me, because I took a 2-year gap, what is that, 23, 22, 23? So I've probably been doing music full time now, as in paying rent with music for 7, 8 years.
Crazy.
And I'm turning 30 this year.
Just getting started.
Just getting started. I'm at the start of
Yeah.
my marketing life cycle, dog. If a manager, like, there's a manager that I've been talking to a couple of managers that, I mean, it's high value asset right here, dog.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not even 30 yet.
Yeah.
It's like my life cycle is just beginning.
Right.
I haven't even peaked on my potential coolness factor, you know?
No, not even
close.
I was gonna ask you how I saw you have your own, you have 2 podcasts.
I have one, but I have a bunch of segments on it. Yeah.
Okay. Have you found that posting the short form of those, like short clips of the long form that you do, has boosted your awareness with regards to followers, with regards to listenership?
No, not that I can tell. So I have over 750,000 downloads, and I have an average weekly download rate of between 6,000 to 9,000 downloads a week. On just the podcasting platform. That doesn't even include YouTube. YouTube is my weakest one, so it only adds like whatever, maybe 1,000 every week, something or two. I don't know. It's my weakest one. But on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, whatever, everything else is about 6,000 to 9,000 downloads a week.
That's crazy. And
I'm
you're not
in the top 1% of podcasts for sure.
That's so
and
sick.
I am the number one music post-production podcast in the world, for sure. I'm not the number one music production podcast, not the number one music podcast, but post-production audio, number one in the world right here. For sure.
Let's fucking go. Are you monetizing that?
A little bit. I'm not doing as well as I'd like to. I think that my podcast was actually one of my biggest failures, in the sense that I should have, as if I was going to pursue being a mixer, I should have created a podcast not for my peers, but for people that would have hired me as a mixer. So I should have done a music production or a songwriting podcast, or I should have pivoted my own career to be a mastering engineer. That would have been a better move, and I would have had better monetization that way. But yes, I have exclusive episodes. We put out 2 exclusive episodes hidden behind a paywall. We have advertisers. We have sponsors. We have general ad revenue. We have tips. I have income from YouTube and Twitch as well. It's small. I can't pay rent. I can't pay LA rent with that shit. But if I don't cash in any of the money that I've been saving up on my back end, I can buy a new computer without paying a dime from my pocket, you know? So I'm doing all right.
Yeah. How long ago did you start that?
4 years ago.
So what does that consistency look like?
So I'm going to tell you right now as well. This is an experiment that we had for my marketing. I started it because of the marketing company. The marketing company, we specifically specialize in marketing podcasts for businesses. We specialize in creating and building podcast education podcasts. So not interview podcasts, education podcasts for businesses in order to sell product. In 2019, when podcast was blowing up, right before about the time that Joe Rogan was acquired by Spotify for what, 200, $400 million, something ridiculous. What is it?
I think it was a 100 deal.
I think it was a couple hundred. If I'm not, either way, I don't remember. It's been a few years, so you might be right here. But either way, during that time, there's a big hype, and right, they overpaid for Joe Rogan's. His podcast was not that valuable. They overpaid to spike activity in the podcast sector, and we were one of those companies that we were very inclined to keep going and to push more because of Joe Rogan's big buyout success. So on that note, we started this podcast company. My podcast was an experiment. We did a bunch of experiments to figure out how we can get new podcasts onto Apple's new and noteworthy section. My podcast was the #1 podcast under technology, under music and under hobbies for 2 weeks, number one in all three of those categories. And I think that's what changed my podcast listeners. My shorts don't do shit. I think they do a little bit, but it's more about like clout, and it's more about bringing fans that are already there to come closer. It's about building relationships, being front of mind as someone that offers professional services, being front of mind. I think that happens. I think I make more money from people hiring me because I post reels, but the algorithm, we've always utilized the algorithm to get me listeners more than anything else. I've never run a single penny of ads on my podcast. It is straight up, my podcast does so well that Apple can't afford to not promote it.
That's crazy. So it's just all organic from
all organic.
Crazy. Just from word of mouth and from just consistency.
From not even word of mouth, from Spotify and Apple recognizing that they make more money when they promote us. That people stay on their platforms longer when they listen to us.
Wow. That's no small feat. Congratulations. That's sick. I didn't realize it was at that scale. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's dope. I feel like there's definitely opportunities to scale the monetization too.
Of course, yeah. And I'm still figuring out. I'm right now. I'm building a couple plugins, but it's just a very slow process. And honestly speaking, I'm not a content creator. I don't want to be a content creator. And this is a thought that I've been having this month. I am on the ground. I am a mix engineer. I am making records. I'm making hit records right now, dog. Like I'm working with managers, A&R, labels. I'm not a teacher for a teacher's sake. Being a teacher is not a source of income for me.
Sure.
This is something I do for fun because I have an ego and I need to inflate it from time to time. And I love knowing that people listen and appreciate my thoughts. I love the haters because it adds more value to my thoughts. I love it. And I think that comes from it's part of it, dude. I'm not a content creator, so I'm actually not bitter that I'm not making more money from it. I'm making enough money to make it worth it, but I will admit that I could be doing a much better job, and it's just not a priority for me right now because I make more money from actually mixing, from doing the work.
Right. Wild. That's crazy. What were your goals like when you started music? Like when you were making shitty songs? Like what did you and then like how have they changed over time? And you said you're working on plugins. It's funny. I was wondering if like that was something in the future for you. So it's funny.
Of course. It's inevitable, right? Some sort of digital product download. That's one of the things that we'd recommend as a company to other businesses to promote on their podcasts. It's digital products. You know, that's something that would be really great.
Is that company still?
It is LaunchPod Media. LaunchPod Media. You can Google it.
So you started.
Hold on 1 second. Is it okay if I have you edit this part?
Sure.
Hold on 1 second. You see some spikes right here. Hi, John. I apologize. My kid was crying, and I felt really bad.
No, you're good. I couldn't tell. Oh, good. But also, yeah.
Well, anyway.
So you said Launchpad Media.
LaunchPod Media.
That's dope.
So LaunchPod.media is the website.
You guys started this while you were in Utah?
Yes, while I was in college, and I started it with 2 other friends, John and John.
That's sick. Do you have equity in that still?
I do.
That's sick. So as they continue to succeed, you just have passive income.
I will. I can sell my equity. And the goal from the beginning of the creating the company was to build enough company and build enough systems where we can either we would sell the company. So the goal is to completely move on and have a successful
exit.
A successful exit. That's the point. So I'm hanging on. It's my gold piggy bank. I'm hanging on to it. I haven't sold any equity to the company, back to the company. I'm holding on to it. I'm not making any. We haven't done dividends yet. We haven't made so much profit that we need to do dividends or anything like that. So it's nothing. It's just a tax form that I send in at the beginning of every year.
But
that's all it is right now.
You're hands off that. You're not working.
I do quarterly board meetings at a minimum. and then do more meetings as needed.
That's crazy. How do you manage? So what's your time management approach like? Because I feel like you have a podcast, you have mixing clients. You know, this sounds like it's not a super taxing, but also I know how important family is to you and making that a priority. Like, do you
Super
have a
important. It's my
calendar?
number
Do you
one
have
thing.
so what's your time management look like? Because I find that like being a creative, it's so easy to get distracted or like follow this
Mm.
route. Like, you know, oh, the Arnold documentary I recommended. Oh, let me watch that. Oh, there's 3 episodes. Oh, he has a book. But it's like, okay, I'm not just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get back to focus? Is it just, okay, here's my 3 priorities, I don't waver? If it's not serving those 3 priorities, I say no. Like, what's your approach? Is it a
That's a good
mindset?
question. That's a great question, and I have no idea. I'm also I'm not just a creative. I am a full chaotic creative,
Sure.
and it is very difficult for me to find some order. But I think that I've successfully found some order in my life and some consistency in my life. Number one, I'm a big fan, firm believer of boundaries. I do not allow clients to tread on me. I do not say yes to clients, no matter how much they're paying. I've said no to major artists over this. I will not work with clients that will not respect my boundaries and my values. I won't, will not. And so, because of that, I love 100% of my clientele. That's a first good starting place. Number two, I have boundaries on timing. I do not work anytime past 6 p.m. unless I really, really want to upsell something or unless I really want to impress someone. That's on my own choice. I don't ever have to do it. I don't believe that there's any such things as emergencies in business. You do not have to do something right now because by the time I send a file, they're not even going to look at it for 2
Right.
days.
For sure. Yeah.
You know?
90%
So
of the time, yeah, they're eating dinner or it's like, yeah.
I refuse now. I refuse to work with artists whose main reason that they want to work with me is because I love them. Does it make sense? It's a different power play. It's a
You
different. I'm not so like for example, there's a lot of big artists out there that anybody would die to be their engineer. I don't want to work with those people. The reason is
Interesting.
you enter that relationship, them thinking that
Mm,
you're only working with them because you want something from them because they have something, they have a history,
I
they've
love
already
that.
had the success.
Yeah,
What it does is it creates a power
for
complex
sure.
that I do not like. I will not work with someone. I will not grovel at their feet. I will only work with you as equal individuals, as equal humans on this planet. I will not do anything else. I will never go against my boundaries, my
That's
personal values that I've created.
that's so rare. I feel like, especially in entertainment in LA, where it's like everyone's chasing. Like, did you learn that the hard way? Almost kind of hitting those goals
You know
where,
what's surprising is it's not as rare as you think at the top.
well, because it's okay. That makes sense. But it's like that makes sense. It's
You
like, oh,
have to say you have if you want to get to the next level of income, you have to learn how to say no. Alex Hormozy has said,
yeah.
in order to get bigger, you have to learn how to say no to bigger opportunities.
Mm.
I believe that.
Well, it's like
And
I've
it's
all
cost me a lot. The things
sure.
that I've said no to will make other people drool.
Yeah.
It's cost me a lot. It's no small expense. It's no small thing. There's a lot of sacrifices that I've made. The difference is I believe that nothing is worth sacrificing my happiness.
Yeah.
Especially not at this point in my life when my kids are the cutest that they'll ever be.
Sure.
He's fucking 2 years old
Yeah.
and 5 years old. He just turned 5 yesterday, dude. They're so cute. I need to
Happy
spend time
belated.
with them. I need to spend time with them. I've heard the most retarded parents that in their 50s and 60s, I asked for them for the parent advice, and they said, make sure that if you're going to work hard, you work hard during their younger years because they won't remember those years as much as their teenage years. Fuck that bullshit. That is the
Interesting.
stupid advice I've ever received ever by supposedly rational adults. Nah, they're going to
Interesting.
remember this shit. I remembered that shit. I remember when my dad stopped spending time with me. I remember that.
Mm.
Yeah. It's never, hell nah. By the time he was able to finally spend time with me, I had already hated him. He was already, he didn't know me at all. He was delusional enough to think that he knew me better than anybody else. It's crazy. It's wild. No, I'm going to spend time with my kids. And it's never going to end. Until they leave the house, I'm going to spend time with my kids. That is my number one priority. And so I think to answer your question, with boundaries and with time management. Yes, I have some things like Trello for project management. I have schedules. I have Mondays that I dedicate to content creation. I have Wednesdays that I dedicate to the studio, things of that nature. I have times. I also know my limitations. I know that I only have 3 to 5 hours of actual productive creative energy a day.
Mm.
And that's dependent. I know what time to drink my coffee in order to be the most productive. I know I need to eat lunch. I know that for me, when I break up a day by going on a run in the hot afternoon, I'm going to come back more refreshed, especially after a cold shower, after a hot run in the afternoon. I know these things. I've learned a lot. I know that I need to have about 6.5 to 7.5 hours of sleep minimum to be any sort of functional the next day. And I know what time I need to go to sleep in order to have that amount of sleep. I know that I love playing video games and that I need to dedicate some time to that. I know that I need to leave time for hobbies. I know what I want, and I'm confident that what I want will bring me happiness. And I think that's the starting line. I think that it's easy to get swept over. It's easy to lose track and be bum rushed and have your priorities taken over, being taken advantage of when you don't know exactly what it is you want. And I am here to say that through all the bullshit, the shining light at the end of the tunnel was knowing exactly what I want from a day-to-day basis.
Well, it's choosing the game you want to play, right? Because are you playing the money game? Are you playing the father of the year game? It's like these are the things I want to do. It's like, because I also feel like if all you did was spend time with your family and your kids, you would then grow resentment because there's right, like there's a fine line. And I saw this quote. I did a half marathon in Long Beach last
Congratulations.
weekend. Thank you.
How did it feel?
It was good. I trained pretty well for it.
Good.
I'm planning on doing LA in March.
Good.
Again.
Hey, sign up. Hey, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Conquer LA Challenge. I'm going to put you in the group chat.
Okay.
September 10th, there's the Santa Monica 10K. In January, there's the Rose Bowl half marathon, and then in March is the LA Marathon. I have a group of buddies that I'm doing all 3 of these with. If you get all 3, then you get the Conquer LA medal. You get 4 medals for running 3 races. You down? You're going to do it anyway, so might as well do all 3.
Sure. Yeah,
I'll talk to you about it after the show.
Sounds great. Good looks. Thank you. So as I'm running, it's just like Santa Monica where there's people walking, whatever. It wasn't a crazy like path like the LA Marathon is. But this lady had a shirt that said "Create Your Balance." And it was like, duh. I was like, duh. Like everyone's like, it's about balance. But it's like saying the way to cook this food is with butter. It's like, well, some dishes are better with olive oil. It's like, bad example. But the point is like, it sounds like you've created your balance. You're not playing a game that someone else is playing because they're playing it and they seem to be happy playing that game. Like you've done the work, you've done the self-awareness, and obviously this is a process. It's not like you get to a place and you're like, work's done. Now I vibe out for the rest. It's like you're still taking stock. You make mistakes, you learn, whatever, you pivot, you iterate, which is
I'm a professional fuck up. I am a professional fuck up. I am so good at making mistakes.
But you learn from them, right? Like that's how you improve. To your point about like having those lows then allow you to have the high that you experience. Like
absolutely. I don't think there's anything better than accelerating your mistake making. That is the best thing anybody can do.
That's the 150 dates thing. Sorry, like that's so genius. Like imagine if like that's such good advice. That is such good advice. It's like the best way to know what flavor you want at the ice cream parlor is to try every fucking flavor. Like, what's your favorite food of all time? Oh, I only like pasta and chicken tenders. It's like you don't know what your favorite food of all time is. Like you will never know unless you like. I feel like
keep it low pressure. Just get some ice cream. Go on a walk. You don't even have to pay money.
Right.
Go longboarding on the boardwalk with that girl. Find out. Have a conversation.
Yeah. People I think are so scared though of rejection.
Date is not a commitment.
I think it's a lot of it is the mental frame is the story you tell yourself about the thing. It's like, oh, she could be the one. Like if this date doesn't work, but it's like if you just take it's like, hey, like I don't know. I think also coming back to what you were talking about earlier, where it's like people don't feel worthy of the what were you saying? I forget the context, but you're saying
have the clear conscience. Take care of your responsibilities so well that you have a healthy amount of superiority complex, that you feel like you deserve good things.
How does someone develop that? How have you developed that? Is it
getting your shit together? No, doing what you know you need to do. And all of those things that you know you need to do are different from person to person.
Right.
Very different. You got cultural values, you got parental values, you got religious values if there is one. You got ethical values as well. You got values based on your region that you live in, maybe by the color of your skin. Doesn't matter. Everybody's got different values. Yeah. Whatever it is that you have, You know when you're rationalizing a decision. I think rationalization is the most evil thing a human being can do. When you convince yourself that what you know you need to do isn't worth doing, because it's more fun to play Pikmin all day, you know.
Right.
It's there's this thing, I think, especially for men, this is actually backed up. This is a
Yeah.
constant thing that I know you know about in many different podcasts, ranging from Huberman to Peterson to even Chris Williamson on Modern Wisdom. People much smarter and more educated that have actual backup evidence to show these things. Men value control. They want control in their life. Depression usually comes from a place of learned not selfishness, but they're unable to help them. Helplessness, learned helplessness. Men's depression comes from usually a place of learned helplessness where they lose control of their life. They don't feel like they're doing enough. They feel miserable because they are not making an impact on the world.
It's so hard. This is why I love that you talk about this, and I love people that talk about this who are about it. Who are about it. Like my friend Carlo, like he's in the gym. He's like 150. He's like lifting 220. Like you're running a marathon. What you said every month this year was your goal? Like
no, not every month. I've only run 2, and I'm gonna run a third. But
still, like
I was gonna run 1 marathon. My goal for this year was to run 1 marathon. Here I am already planning my third.
Right.
Yeah, my only goal that I need to I've done, by the way, every year I set goals, every year I accomplish all of them, and this year the only goal that I have left over is to go skydiving. I want to go skydiving. It's like before I turn 30, my last goal after skydiving, which is already planned, it's all good, is to run 30 miles on my 30th birthday. 30 miles on my 30th. My first unofficial ultra marathon.
What is that? 40K? 50? No. 50K?
Yeah, well, technically it'd be 50K. So if I run 31 miles, which I'll probably do, it'll be 50K.
Yeah.
So I'll do that because that sounds cooler. But going back to what you're saying, I do believe, and the cool thing about this sort of mentality about learning to take responsibility is that it's so equal to everyone. Not a single person is in this scenario, right? It's the problem with excuses is that they're all valid. I grew up in this place. I grew up poor. I have bad parents. The color of my skin, whatever. I went to a bad school. These are all valid excuses that society will let you have and will let you talk yourself to the bottom of the barrel. They will let you. They want you to do it. Society doesn't want to see you succeed.
And the people around you will often like re-encourage that because they're
not real friends.
Well, that's hard because it comes back to yourself, your perspective on yourself. Like if you don't think you're capable of running a marathon and you're like, hey guys, like I think I'm gonna go for it. I think I'm gonna try to like, I saw some people do it. I'm gonna go for a marathon. Like if the people around you have a similar limiting belief that you did, like they're realistically gonna clown you, joke at you. Like very few people are gonna be like, you got this. Like I believe in you. Like that's so inspiring.
Everybody needs to have good friends. Yeah, I agree.
And it's hard to find. Like it's almost like you have to find I don't know. That's why I feel like I consume books and podcasts because it's like, like I'm working at this restaurant right now, and one of my coworkers sent me this bill. He got tipped like very well last night, and he's like, I need to surround myself with more people like this guy. And I was like, that's why I listen to podcasts and books because that's the only access I have to these people. It's like they're out there. We have the internet. Like the Pandora's box is open. It's now like what you do with it. It's what you in any situation. I was at the gym this morning, like earlier today. One guy with one leg is there working out. There's a lot of people who weren't in the mood. Go. There's a lot of people like he's getting after it. He's not here like, it's I'm not up for it today. He's like at a certain point, it's I posted this on my story. There's this dude who was born with literally like no arms and no legs and just bought a house. And it's like, you could say, oh, well, he used his disadvantages to build an audience and to be speaking. It's like, he has no limbs, like, and he bought a house. Like, I don't know. It just made me real.
Fuck your excuses, dog. Fuck your excuses. When Alex Hormozy also quotes somebody else, I'm requoting him, but he said, the power follows the blame finger. And it's really easy. And it's actually ethical. And it's actually recommended. It's normal to point it at everybody else, at your parents, at your family, at your situation, the trenches where you grew up in fucking Louisiana, if that's where you grew up. It's easy to point the finger. It's human nature to do so. But when you point it
Right.
back at yourself and realize none of this shit has power over me, the power comes back to you. And I think that's, especially for men, for women, it's a little bit different, but it does still apply a little bit. Especially for men, the data shows men are depressed from learned helplessness and need to slowly figure out through therapy, oftentimes with professional help, need to slowly learn how to take their life back in control step by step. And if that means waking up and brushing your teeth, and if that's where that starts, that's where that starts. It doesn't matter.
Amen.
You shouldn't be comparing yourself to the guy that's learned enough to run a marathon. If you haven't been brushing your teeth, if you haven't been shaving, if you haven't been doing whatever, if you haven't been making whatever, if making your bed is something that you value, for a lot of people, it's not, right? It doesn't matter. If you value it and you feel even the teensiest amount of regret from not doing it, you should be doing that shit.
Well, it's instilling that sense of pride. It's like, I come home to a made bed because I care about myself enough to do that. And it's teaching yourself that you're worthy of someone being, you're worthy of being cared for. And you have to teach yourself that if you lack that, or even if you didn't lack it, but you feel insecure because of that learned lack or whatever it is, or your mental frame is just like, oh, like I'm not worthy or whatever it is, that the story that we tell ourselves, it's like, it ultimately we are also holding the pen, and we're going to keep writing that story the more we think those thoughts. And that's why I think it's so important to get around people like I'm learning from you, you know what I mean? And some of this I might not have even heard before, but some of it it's like the way you say it, right? Which is the magical thing about like listening to people who know shit that you don't know. But it's having something to be prideful of. You finish that marathon, you're like, you can't fucking touch me, I'm in pain. But it's like, holy fuck, I just shattered a glass ceiling. Like it's
and then you feel like you deserve it. You feel like all the good things, all the good things that were formerly luck turn into blessings when all of a sudden you know you're doing your shit. All it is, it's the same exact shit that would have happened anyway. But your perspective changes when you know you've been doing the right things. I'm a big, firm believer of that. So if you are religious, quit half-assing it. Either stop it or follow it. It's one of the ways. And you don't need to be a full believer. I'm just saying believe enough for it to be practical. Like take the practical aspects of your religion in your life if that's important to you. If you don't feel any guilt about it, then who gives a shit? It doesn't matter. But everybody has different values. And so figure out what your values are, really be assertive about them, and then follow them. One step at a time, 1%, right? Atomic habits there. But I really do believe that if you slowly start to do this, you start to do the things that you know you should have done from the beginning, and you slowly start to do them, I believe that you will feel a sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride. And again, that small little bit of superiority complex, that small little bit of arrogance that comes from the confidence of knowing you did what you were supposed to do is what gets people up to greater heights. Yeah, that is what it is.
Yeah.
It's not someone lifting you up, because they're not even going to lift you up if you aren't somewhat arrogant.
Well,
I don't want to go to a barber that's questioning whether or not he's a good barber. I want a barber that fucking is bragging about his shit, who's posting on social media because he's so proud of his work. I want someone that's proud of their work. I want someone slightly arrogant.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a fine line. I think something that's helped me is understanding that, like, coming back to like, you are your environment. Like, if the standard of the people I associate with is higher than my standard, I either have to grow, right? Or I have to stay where I am. And that growth is going to hurt, but it's the same thing. If the standard's below where I want to be, I have to be okay finding people who have the similar standards, or who are going to hold me to a higher standard. Like, hey man, you said you were going to do that. Hey man, you said you're going to do it, right? And it's like, part of that starts internally. You can't just depend externally on that. But no one does this shit alone. You know, I'm watching the Arnold thing. He succeeds in Europe, and then he comes to Miami, he gets second place, and he realizes, like, I need help. I need someone to help train me. And like, at the end of the day, no one does this shit alone. He didn't become the actor by himself. He didn't become a politician by himself. And no one does this shit alone. And so it's like being humble enough to, which I'm learning too, is like being humble enough to like look for people that, because ultimately, like, it's me versus me, right? Like, having the internal pride that I'm growing and I'm better than I was yesterday, I'm better than I was last year, and like playing the game that I want to play is something that like I'm realizing. And then having standards around people that are gonna help me upkeep that standard I set for myself, instead of just talking about it, but encourage me to be about it.
I agree. I want to level the playing field a little bit. We're kind of getting to that arrogant bro territory, and I want to level it out a little bit.
Okay.
Couple things. One, when you when you work with someone or talk to someone that you believe is higher level than you and that motivates you, that is good on you. That is your decision. Very easily can that turn into, I can never be like him. More excuses, more excuses, more excuses. And you will always find the excuses. I think that's a decision that you've made, and that's a great decision to make. Number two, the great thing about competing in this way and figuring out slowly taking responsibility over one at a time is that it democratizes everything. Success, income, what you were talking about before with popularity even. What was the word you used?
Prestige. Yeah.
Prestige.
Yeah.
It's the most democratic that it's ever been in the history of the world. It's never been more democratized. Attention has never been more democratized because of TikTok and the internet, right? I'm telling you right now, this is the best news that anybody that can have. Whether you're at the bottom, you can climb to the top. And then anybody at the top can easily, with the snap, can fall to the bottom. It's so volatile. And this should be the most hopeful news anyone can receive. I'm gonna fuck up. I have ups and downs all the time. I think it's a net positive. I believe my life has been a net positive, but I've been lower than a lot of people, and you've probably been low as well. Everybody's gone low. Everybody goes high. But the point is, as long as it's a net positive, everybody's competing. The only thing that you cannot do is give up.
Right.
You cannot give up, right? And I know these are just basic platitudes here. Everybody's heard all this shit. It's all bullshit. It's a bunch of bros on the internet that believe that their word is more important than somebody else's, and having the audacity to have a podcast to share their own opinion. I don't give a shit. The point is, there are young men and women right now in this world that listen to my podcast, that will listen to this podcast, that listen to our words, to be human. The problem, this is front of mind. Human beings are not intrinsically our lives are not intrinsically valuable because we're humans. It's so easy. You can say that human beings are the scum of the earth with that logic. With the better logic is, human beings are great, and your life as an individual, no matter how lowly you are, is important because your opinions and your small changes matter. We believe in the butterfly effect. Your small life, your super insignificant life, even as a Fortnite gamer, bro, is going to have a positive impact on someone someday. And it does not matter how small of a scale that impact is or how big of a scale that impact is. They are both equally important. I literally had an open mic night when I was in Utah. I hosted an open mic night at my studio, and I listened to this. And may I say, I'll be honest here. I'm just depicting the scene to this lady that at the time was overweight. I didn't know who she was. It was a hip hop open mic night, and she played an acoustic folk song. The entire time I was arrogant enough to think, oh shit, this is making me look bad. This is turning, like, we had just bangers from song to song, bangers that everybody's showing. And then all of a sudden we have this low calm, and I was just concerned about myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, the guy that was sitting next to me, he was one of the rappers in the area that, had some respect. After the song ended, he stood up and he said, I don't think I've ever said this before, but I think that song just changed my life. And I fucking remember that moment. I will never, ever forget that single moment. When that butterfly wing flapped, someone's heart changed.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for it. I didn't see the value. I had placed value in how it affected me. That was an incredible moment. Every single life is intrinsically valuable because you inspire others, because we have kindness and understanding. That is the difference. So right now, if anybody is going through major depression, which almost everybody has in some point in their life, just remember, you are valuable, and you are worth taking responsibility and starting over. You're worth it.
And capable. Like, I think almost we almost sometimes need permission from someone else. Like, I even talk to you and you're like, dude,
let this be that permission then. Let this be that permission.
It's like, if no one tells you you're good enough, why would you tell yourself you're good enough? And so it's like, that's why those small things of pride is like, even if you don't believe it, just do some shit. And I guarantee you'll start feeling like, oh, going on a walk, going on a run, like eating healthy, like all those hard things. It's like, okay, like X all that out. But I don't know, start, like you said, start small, like brush your teeth. It's like, dude, like there's nights I've passed out and I've forgotten to brush my teeth and I wake up and I'm like, I suck. My life, I'm so stupid. And it's like, because I've held myself to a high standard. And it's like, I'm not comparing myself to people who, I'm comparing myself to the ideal, which is me never fucking up. And so it's like, I don't know.
That's
Go ahead.
impossible, dog. No,
Right.
I think like one of my favorite quotes. This is from a recovery addiction program that I was part of years ago, almost a decade ago, over a decade ago, and they rephrased relapse. It's like, and in the book it said relapse is actually a really great thing, and so we want to kind of reshape reality of what relapse is. If you have stopped your addiction, right, whatever it is, and it could be something as simple as biting your nails or
Sure.
making your bed,
Drinking, whatever.
not making your bed. It could be as something as serious as
Okay.
drinking or over
Yeah.
drinking, right? It doesn't matter. It should be relatable. By the way, the good thing about relapse, everybody when they relapse, they get sad. They feel exactly what you feel. That's human
Yeah.
nature. Like, I cannot believe I fucking did that. I hold myself to higher standards than this. And then it becomes when you feel that way after relapse, it is very difficult to start again. It makes it more difficult. The way that you should look at relapse is, I made it this fucking far.
Yeah.
I went 3 days. I went three days without looking at pornography. That's fucking amazing. I think I can do better this time.
No, I heard this. It's funny. I was actually interning at your studio and I was listening to this podcast and they talked about something very similar. I vividly remember there's this vegan restaurant nearby and I love their like chicken wings. So good. So I was literally sitting in my car, probably depressed and anxious, eating chicken wings in my car as one does. And one of the things he said is like, if you fuck up and you mess up, that doesn't mean you're a fuck up. Like if you go up to bat, if you shoot 100 shots and you make 59 shots and you miss the 60th shot, you're not back at 1. You're 59 for 60. And then you just get up the next day and get back after. Like it's really hard to your point because you feel like you've invested so much, but like ultimately all we have is the present. And it's almost the ego mind to be like, hey man, you were so good, you were killing it. It's like the only thing that exists is today, and that's it. It's like win the day. I'm doing 75 hard right now, and I'm on day 8, and it's like all I have to do is drink a gallon of water.
Wait, what are you doing?
75 hard.
What's that?
I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool.
It's
Your day 8?
Day 8. So it's 75 days, 2 workouts a day. One has to be outside, 45 minutes each. Drink a gallon of water, take a progress pick every day, read 10 pages of a self-development entrepreneurship book where you're going to learn. That's it. And maintain a diet. And no
That's it. Hold on. I want to be clear. You said that's it, but that's pretty major.
It is.
It's
a lot.
Major, especially for someone, dude, even for me, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But what helped me reframe it, coming back to the point, is I just have to do that today. I'm not worried about any other day. The past is gone. The future doesn't exist. I just have to get through today, right? So I wake up. Oh, let me knock that progress pick out of the way. Let me fill up my half gallon. Like a gallon of water, that's crazy. It's like you're comparing to you yesterday. Like all you got to do is just do it today. And I think like it's ultimately change occurs in the moment when you decide to take action. And so, I mean, I hope that's right. The takeaway. Like, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. But you mentioned how Goggins resonated with you because he made you feel like a bitch. And I think that is important. I think it is important to see like there's 2 ways to interpret shit. Like one of my homies, my roommate, one of my best friends from college, like blew up on TikTok. He's doing it full time. And there's 2 ways you could see that. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how is you could look, or you could be like, bro, that's so inspiring. That shit's possible. And I think like that's the way you interpreted Goggins. And I think to your point about blame is normalized, so is knocking people down that are doing well, because we like whatever reason, like it's almost like we look for the, TMZ is like a successful business still for like 20 years, and their business is predicated on tearing people down because we love that shit. We love hearing other people are doing not good. And it's like being human enough to switch the perspective to curiosity and humility and oh shit, how did you do that? Right? Oh bro, like wait, you blew up on TikTok. Like what were your approach? Like what were your takeaways? Like you can learn something from everyone. So that's hard too, but it's also fostering that environment full of people that are going to encourage that thought process.
That's exactly right. And with improvement, with self-discovery, with ego, with life, you need a lot of different things by your side: good friends, a
Yeah.
mentor, maybe even a good book, whatever it is, right? A desire that you're really, really honed into, that you're focused on. For me, I'm going to talk about something that I am an actual expert in, is music. And I know for a fact, almost everybody listening to this podcast, music has saved your life in one way or another. Maybe not literally, right? But music is so good for the soul.
Mm.
It helps you emote in ways that you are unable to. It helps you express your feelings in ways that you are unable to express on your own. There's a reason why punk music is so popular, because angst is a real feeling. Anger is a real feeling, and you cannot bottle that shit up.
It's
I'm going
channeling
to tell
it.
you, it's channeling it. There you go. And for me, the reason why I do music is to help people in their journey of life, no matter how crisscrossed and backwards and bullshit, how much bullshit is filled, how much is going against you. The reason why I love and I got into music is because at the end of the day, music helped me cope.
Yeah.
And for me, when I
Same.
make music, what it is it's scalable therapy that helps people, millions of people around the world, copes with this bullshit called life, because it's not always easy. I really do believe that everyone is intrinsically has the right to happiness. And I think that is a goal that everybody should have. I believe that from a religious perspective, you are supposed to be not happy just in the afterlife, but on this time on earth. I think whatever form of God or Allah or whatever that you believe in would be disappointed to find out that you sacrificed everything, was miserable your entire living life, just to find out that by the time you got back to the Creator, you can finally be happy. I think he'd be upset. I think they'd be upset. I think that you're meant to be happy now. And if you aren't happy now, you need to figure that shit out.
Yeah.
I think everybody deserves happiness. So on that note, dude, I really believe music, and the one thing that I do, however small and insignificant it is, I think it helps people get out of the gutter. I believe that it helps people cope, and I think it helps people enjoy their life. I think it helps people be happy.
Amen.
And I'm really, really proud that I'm able to do what I do.
100%. No, I appreciate it. Appreciate you sharing that. Going off I'm glad you brought it back to music. I want to ask you a couple questions on music for, like one-off questions, because I know you know your shit, and I am still learning, and I'm genuinely curious. So, like, if someone is wanting to start making music, they know nothing, they bought a mic maybe, or they're about to buy a mic, and they downloaded Logic. What are 1 to 5 plugins you'd recommend for someone starting off that would help take their vocals from absolutely nothing stock plugins to intermediate level? Or what is one
Actually,
essential?
Yeah, so I actually think I think that's the flawed form of logic, and I'm not calling you out necessarily, but it's this idea of logic here. I do not think tools matter. I do not think the tools matter. I think the DAW does not matter. I do not think your first 5 tools should be learning your shortcuts.
Should be learning the stock plugins.
The stock plugins, learning the shortcuts, figuring shit out. The cool thing about music, and anybody that decides to get into it, is that everybody who goes into music has a baseline sense of taste. They grew up my 4-year-old son knows when he likes other songs more than others. Well, he's now 5. He turned 5 yesterday. I apologize. My 2-year-old son, who has Down syndrome, knows that he likes some songs more than others and is able to express it. Now, when we work on music, we don't quite understand the technical reasons why we prefer one sound over the other, but we have a baseline sense of taste. And when we talk about the technical things like plugins, like chord structures, some theory is very, very important, and I'm not going to down talk it, but if you focus too much on structure, then you don't have enough yin. You don't have enough yin from the yin and yang. You don't have enough chaos that leads to great creation. Hold on, I need to Google, make sure it was yin. I have a feeling I might have been wrong.
This is yin and yang.
No, one of them is chaos and the other one is order.
Gotcha.
And I think I felt like I just fucked it up, so I want to be very clear. Yeah, yang, meaning yin, is the moon. Yep, is Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yin is female chaotic energy. Yin. Yep. So everybody, you need yin and you need yang um, in order to keep going. You need to learn some skills. I do believe that.
Yeah.
But that's the wrong first question.
I've said
Wrong
no.
first question.
I'm so happy you said it. I've been in sessions where I've said this before, and even not in sessions where I've said the quote that you said is really one of the things that resonated for me from the internship too, which is like it's more about the ear than it is the gear, which is ultimately, I believe, what you're saying. Which is like you trust you, you throw you into any computer with any plugins with any DAW, like you have the ear to figure it out to get a good enough mix against someone with all the tools in the world who doesn't know how to use their ear, how to follow their taste in that way.
And I think it is important. It is important to know your tools. And it's a great question to ask. It's a great question. It's a bad first question.
So yeah, so second question. So then I guess as a second question, you've learned your taste, you followed your taste, you fucked around, you made shitty music, you made whatever, 20, 50 songs of just presets. I remember I didn't buy any tune for a long time. And then I remember I felt very I felt I was able to do so much more. I use Wavetune. I don't even have Autotune, Antares. So it's like, but even just with that tool, I was so much more willing to be vulnerable. I was so much more willing to express myself. And I think like sometimes people, so maybe I would recommend that if it was one plugin for people.
I think if you are going to invest in tools, you should invest in tools that you don't have. For example, you don't need another EQ. You need something that you didn't have, which is an Autotune, right, of some kind. I think that's a great place to start if you do not have a denoiser. Get noise out of the signal. But I do think that the first step when starting music, if someone's in the first stages where I think just like how I feel like my children should be living, I think the number one important thing, and this goes on even into professional realms, the number one most important thing is to have fun, to play. You have to play. You have to learn what you like. You have to practice exploring your tastes. You have to have fun with this shit. And if it's not fun, dude, the worst music I've ever heard is music that sounds like they're trying way too hard. It's the most generic ass, boring ass. Who the fuck? You're not even cool. You're just trying to be cool, and I can tell.
Yeah.
It's the most generic ass, try hard shit I've ever heard in my life, and that sucks. I need to either cry, to smile, to laugh.
Right.
I need to have a good time. Whatever emotion that you're trying to invoke doesn't come unless you sincerely feel those things. And how are you going to be able to sincerely express those things unless you have play? Unless you figure it out, unless you figure out your taste. So I think the first step is to have fun with it. Don't even think about the technical shit. Just live in bliss until one day you find something. You're like, this shit hits. I actually want to make it better. And then you hit a wall of, oh shit, I don't know how to make it better.
Right.
And I think that's when you should start caring. Bringing that yang a little bit, have a little bit less fun, figure out the reasoning behind stuff.
So good. So well put.
Even now, dude. Sorry, I don't want me to bring this up. This is super important for me. I think that people that are professionals, when you start to make money from a passion for a hobby, the game changes completely. Completely.
Too much order.
You need more order, but more important, like you need a shit ton of resilience. I think most people don't want it as bad as they actually say they do, because by the time they have to eat a little bit of shit and do all the things that they don't want to do in order to do what they want to do, they find out they actually don't want to do what they want to do as much as they thought they did. I think that's pretty normal.
Okay, wait,
but I mean, it's.
Can you elaborate on like what that experience was for you?
I think yes.
Overcoming that.
When I joined a band, when I created a band in college for fun, everybody came to practice on time. Nobody gave a shit. It was all fun and games.
Yeah.
Then we had a gig that paid money. We started having offerings. One year we had a bunch of offerings for gigs that pay money. I paid my band out. Maybe they made $2 an hour if you include the rehearsals, right? Because there's lots of rehearsal times before a gig. Whatever it was, very little money. I spread it out evenly. After I paid everybody once, everyone stopped showing up to rehearsals. Everybody started asking, is this gig paying? No? Then I'm not going to rehearse.
Interesting. There's a new
game changes.
Expectation.
Expectations change. I think it is fully honorable to do have creative outlets for the pure sake of fun. I think it is honorable to maintain and stay an amateur, French for the lover of. It is important to be an amateur. An amateur loves making mistakes. They're proud of their any sort of progress. A professional, there's pride involved. There's egos. There's a sense of their inability to make mistakes. Sometimes people feel trapped in a box. Then you also realize you have to do taxes. You have to do things that you have to actually show some sort of professional demeanor when you talk with stupid fucking clients. The game changes. You have to do things that you no longer want to do. So number one, I think it's better for most people to have a creative outlet that stays at an amateur level. I think that's very important for a creative soul. Once you start making a professional living on something, the game does change, completely changes.
Sure. I've seen it happen with friends that have gone from like no audience to like they've started making thousands of dollars from their music, and it's like the pressure is like, I always wanted this, but fuck, I didn't know. Like
imagine right now, yeah.
I vicariously like I empathize. Like I feel like I can understand because I'm close enough to it where it's like, I don't know, like money gets involved and it's like, oh shit. And then it's also like people, he was saying like people start hitting him up that like he knows are only hitting him up because he's popping. And it's like, who actually fucks with me? And it's like, fuck, dude. Like,
and it comes back full circle, dude, because it comes back to if the good thing that happens to you and you fucking earned that shit,
yeah,
you will feel way better about it.
For sure.
Imagine right now you had the opportunity, you were given a $100 million deal right now to build an album. Right now. Zach, right now. You ready? You're going to make the best thing that you've ever made?
I don't think.
Or are you more likely to fall under some kind of pressure?
No, I mean,
I know you're strong enough. You can make it through.
No, I appreciate you.
There's unnecessary pressure. Unnecessary pressure. But imagine if you earned that. You earned that deal. You fucking wrote. You're doing so great right now. You're bustling. You might earn it right now. You might feel that you earn it right now. But the point is, if you work hard, you feel like you deserve it.
It's hard for me to put a number, of money to, but I understand what you're saying with regards to like, based on the current standards and the A-list, B-list of like who's doing it at the highest levels, the highest fucking level out the gate is like typically not sustainable. Typically it takes a long time to get there. So for sure.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay if things take a long time. It's okay if you have to earn your way to the top. It's okay because it makes it feel more worth it.
One of the things you said is like, you don't want to work with the people that everyone wants to work with. And I always felt that like this person I'm talking about, this artist, like I met him at an open mic, super talented, fucking, I co-wrote one of the songs on the EP, and one of the songs on that EP kind of like blew up. And like we had that session, he had 98 monthly listeners. I fucked with him as a person, like just super dope dude, very talented artist. And that to me is the goal. I want to work with people I fuck with. And then as one of us succeeds, like not that I have any expectation for a handout or anything, but it's like, my intention is to do that. My intention is when I have the platform, the ability, like how many comedians have careers that are sustainable because Joe Rogan had them on their show? Or how, you know what I mean? Regardless of career, Cam Haynes, like people outside of comedy. And it's like, I admire those people who are bringing their peers up, the people they came up with, and working with them to kind of like get out and say, hey, we're in this barrel together. Let's both get out. To me, that's the inspiring stories, as opposed to like obviously a cold DM Drake, but like the reality is he's got his people, he's got hundreds of producers sending him beats. Like I would almost rather work with someone who is obscure and produce some shit for them, and that be the new thing. And that, you know what I mean? Like that's your way in, is by like making the shit happen, by like changing the quote that you said that I listened to I did the James Lawrence marathon in Utah, and I was listening to one of your podcasts on the drive back, and you said the unreasonable man quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. The reasonable man adapts up the reasonable.
Oh, I got you, bro.
I'm butchering it.
Got you, bro. Give me 20.
Reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man, the world.
Hold on. So this is from George Bernard Shaw. Actually,
Yeah.
I don't think I need to reference it. I think I memorized these. There's a few quotes that I have memorized, but I'll read it just in case. George Bernard Shaw, famous writer in the early 1900s, he said, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man."
Yeah. I mean, it's unreasonable to think that I would produce a song for Drake or like work on a song for Drake, but it's like, it's to come back to having more fun. Like that to me is like, hey, like fuck with me, tell me I'm good enough, as opposed to like, hey bro, I fuck with you. Hey man, I fuck with you. Yo, let's make some shit that let's have fun. Boom. Oh shit, that resonated. People like that. Like to your point, like to me, that's how shit happens. That it's like change the world by like shifting, the ability to like shift culture. Not that producing a Drake record wouldn't shift culture, but it's like, I don't know. To your point, like I admire that. I think that's almost the way to go. Coming back to like having that self-respect too. It's like I'm spending my whole life just to get verified by someone else, or is like I'm gonna verify myself, verify these people, and like win or lose, we're gonna do our fucking best and know we give it our all.
Yeah, I definitely think you're onto something. And I think that this is something that most people will have to go through at one point in their life, especially those that are creative, that are chasing quite often what sometimes feels like a selfish dream. It's not. It's not a selfish dream in most cases, but sometimes it feels that way. Everybody's going to have to go through this. This is, I think it's very challenging to be creative, to have the talent of feeling emotions, to have a sense of emotional intelligence. It's a big burden to bear, but I think it's an extremely important one. And I think it's one that makes us human. And I think there's a lot of stupid shit being said by overly emotional people. But I think we have to say stupid shit to figure out where within all of that shit there is truth. There's truth somewhere in that shit. And as Theo Von said, good thing freedom of speech is free because it would cost way too much. To say whatever the fuck we wanted. It costs way too much. We need to keep it free, man.
Definitely.
It's we need to figure that shit out. We need to experiment. We need to be creative. We need the responsibility of being a human. I believe one of the purposes of being a human is to share your opinion, no matter how stupid or wrong I personally think you are. I think it's very important for you to say things. And I also think it's important for anybody to learn from them or to try new ideas, to not be stuck in their ways, but to say bullshit and figure out if there is a better way. I think it's all of our responsibilities as human to find better ways. Going back to your thing, dude. I do think man, yeah, it's hard, dude. Life is a weird endeavor. And I really truly believe that us as creatives, you as a creative, Zach, it is your duty. It is our responsibility as creatives to express emotions for those that can't at a baseline level. I think that's the bare minimum. There are people out there that cannot. They're frustrated and they don't know why. They can't. They feel like nobody else. They feel like the black sheep. Nobody else in the world is like them.
Right.
I don't relate to all these other men. I don't relate to all these other hockey players, these football players. I don't relate to all these Barbie loving girls that love pink. I don't relate to this.
Yeah.
They need artists like you and all the artists around the world to relate to. They need someone to relate to. I think that's important. It's an important part of our society for sure.
100%. I mean, it's like, as someone who's struggled, what it's like to struggle, and the reality is, statistically speaking, other people are struggling, and if you can use any of what you've learned on your overcoming of your struggles to help someone else, fulfillment 101. Like hey man, because ultimately what helped me get through, coming back to no one does it alone, is other people who have overcome their struggles. I mean, Goggins is a perfect example. Hey man, I was fucking struggling killing roaches. I was no one. I was a nobody. I was like nothing. And then he becomes like one of the most like decorated, actually, I don't know, like military speak.
He's not one of the most decorated, but
yeah, that wasn't the right terminology. One of the most like
respected human beings.
There we go. Respected. Right. Yeah. I mean,
I
Yeah,
mean, you can talk shit about him, but it's wild if you don't respect that man.
Yeah, he's overcome so much, and I think in that he's inspired so many. And I think you don't have to do what he's done to ultimately have an impact on someone else. And one of the most beautiful things is like when you're out in public or you just see some shit and you just see someone do something dope and you're like, I fuck with that. They don't know you saw it, but you saw it. To your point, maybe you made a comment to that rapper next to you and to that girl, hey, but like you were inspired, you were impacted by that moment. It's resonated with you to this day. And it's like ultimately, I mean, we're doing all this talking, but I also know you're about it. You've got the medals on the wall. It's proof like that you do hard shit. And just like hearing your story too, like it's just a testament. I'm so excited to like I've been telling everyone this because I feel like it's so fun when like my friend I'm talking about, hey man, I fuck with you. Oh boom, he blows up. Like egotistically, I fucking love that shit. I fucking knew it. You're dope, and I called it, and now everyone else gets it. And it's like I've been saying this to everyone that I've had on because it's like I'm so excited to see the growth as well, and I'm grateful.
Hey, you know what's
to
crazy?
have these conversations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I'm really grateful as well. Thank you for having me on. I will say with your friend, I think you'd also be lying that if you said that you didn't feel a tinge of jealousy. No human
Well, this is where
blast off
see
without feeling a small schmidget of jealousy. But I
this
think
is where that the point that I was making earlier is my friend that blew up on TikTok. There's two ways to interpret it. Hey, why him? Like what, same with the musician friend. Like why him? Like there's that's almost the default to your point as a human. But like it's doing the work to be like, I don't have to pick that thought. I can also be like, I can like if you just change the thought from that's why gratitude's so dope too. It's like you can be like, oh fuck, this guy's this guy's this guy's this. It's like, hey man, I have this, I have this, I have this, I have air, I have the ability to walk, I have the ability to talk, I have the ability to see, I have health, there's so many blessings. Once I start focusing on my blessings, like it comes back to the game that I'm playing. And to your point, like it takes time. So just because it's happened to someone doesn't mean it's not going to happen to me. Their success doesn't take away from mine. And I could use their success by proximity as inspiration, selfishly. Good. Right? True. Not even as a way for me to hey man, give me a handout, but as an inspiration, coming back to the Goggins thing, which ultimately makes me a better everything. So I think there was I was way more of that, and obviously I'm human, but I don't instinctively go to jealousy. Like obviously I'm human, but I do my best now to try to go to like inspiration, because if someone's doing something that I haven't or that I don't think I can, and they've shown me that I can, even if I knew them when they weren't able to, it just goes to show that shit's fucking possible. And I think that to me is like inspiration is everything. Like I love that shit.
So I do think there's 2 points that I want to make here with that sentiment, because I think you're on the money right here. Number 2 is using jealousy as a compass. I'm going to get to that in just a moment here.
Okay.
But in the book, The Go-Giver talks about if you are a kind person, then you don't even consider the option of being kind. Being kind is not a decision that you make. It becomes from repetition of choosing to be kind, then it becomes a part of your character. Often people that say, I've been too kind, I am a kind person, is not, because that implies that they're choosing to be kind. That means the option of being unkind was something that they considered, and they decided that being kind outweighs the decision to be unkind. A real kind person. So when you say you didn't even consider the thought of being jealous, that means that your mind is such in a right place, and you've consistently put your mind in the right place, that you didn't even consider the option of being jealous. And I think there's something very glorious, very respectful, very honorable. And I know that didn't take no small amount of work to get to that point. It takes a lot of self-awareness to get to that point. So congratulations on you, and for anybody else that feels a certain way. Choosing to be kind does not make you kind. Number 2, the point that I want to make is jealousy is a compass. For many people right now that are going through the same struggles that I did, which is not knowing what the fuck you want to do with your life, not feeling like you have a direction, not feeling no goal in the world quite states exactly, you don't quite identify with it. You don't know what you want to do. You don't feel like you're directionless. I'm going to tell you something great right now. This is where you can use jealousy. Jealousy is a great compass to figure out what the fuck you like. I get jealous of people. I stop my tracks right there and I say, what about that am I getting jealous of?
Mm.
And then I figure out where I want to go in the future. And I determine whether or not that's something that I put in my values. When you see someone, and I heard about when I started running, and then I saw marathon runners, there's a sense of jealousy.
Sure.
And I figured out I'm going to run a marathon. I think jealousy can, especially for those that don't know what they want, or in order to continuously reshape the desires that people naturally have and change over the course of time, jealousy is a great indicator to feel more fulfillment in your life. I do think it can also be extremely toxic, but I do think that it serves a practical purpose.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would push up against, I think, is the idea that being kind is not a choice, because then it's like, oh, guess I'm a fucking asshole and I can't do anything about it. And I think I know that's not what you're saying. There's that old
You're right.
Native
You can
American.
identify as an asshole. To be honest, I identify as an asshole.
I can be, for sure. I think, look, no one's perfect. Like, even to say that I'm, you know, I think like there's an old Native American saying where it's like there's two wolves, and ultimately, like, which one, the wolves are at war, and one is like gratitude and humility and inspiration, and the other is like jealousy and anger and resentment. It's
Natural
like,
human nature, yeah.
yeah, it's like, well, which one wins the war? Because they're fighting. And the ancestors, like, whichever one you feed wins the war. And so it's like, that's kind of the reality. And so in those moments of like, do I want to be kind? Do I want to not? Look, there's this, I hesitate saying it because now it sounds like I'm like giving myself a pat on the back, which I guess I am, but it felt really good to do it. I was running one time and there's this guy who's a bit overweight. And to be honest, like, I saw him, and like, as I've been more intentional about health, and I've had internal resentment about weight and my figure and not being fit enough, like, I've then put that out on other people. And I that's not my intention. I'm not here trying to judge people, but sometimes I feel like mad because look, I'm fucking blessed and I'm not here to judge anyone else. But I think there was a ping of like a thought in my head, which was like, he's not gonna, he was like calling to the bus, and I'm running, and like, I could see the bus is gonna leave, the doors are closed, and I look at him right before, and I'm like, I had this thought of just like, this guy's overweight, like, he's not gonna make the bus. And then I was like, but I can do something about it. So I ran, I told the guy to wait, and then I waited till the guy came, and it was like, I fucking probably made that guy's day, whether I did or didn't. I felt good about it. And so it's like, I didn't think about running to stop the bus, but I also had this negative thought about this guy, and I think like that's just the human condition. It's like,
you turned it into something good.
I think it comes down to action. It's like, do I be kind or do I not be kind? I think it's okay to even think that. I think it's in those moments where then it comes down to action.
Well, that's a decision of whether or not you want to go out of your way. Of course, you wanted to be kind. You wanted to be kind, but the decision wasn't whether or not to be kind. The decision was whether or not you wanted to go out of your way.
It wasn't too much out of my way.
Different.
I felt like, to me, I just felt like I didn't think.
Sure.
I didn't think.
I do. I have some. As a Japanese person living in the States, I do have some. I'm sure some opinions about health in America.
Sure.
That will piss people off.
Please.
And I think good so, but that's not what we're getting into.
No, I mean, it's no, I agree.
I don't think you should feel bad, but I do think that you made the right decisions. That even though you saw this weakness in somebody else, you overcame it with kindness. I think that is humanity at its finest. I love that story. That's a great fucking story.
Thank you. What's cool too is like, who knows? Maybe not. And I'm not trying to project this, but maybe he was you in that open mic. Maybe he goes, I need to fucking lose weight. You know what I mean? Maybe he went home that day and he's like, I'm too fat to run to the bus myself. That, like, what am I doing? Like, maybe not.
More importantly, you consciously thought, oh, I'm trying not to be judgmental, right? Because obviously you're going to think that everybody has those kinds of thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Especially I'd be lying to say that he didn't have that own thought himself, probably.
Sure.
He probably definitely did. Right? Even in that moment, maybe he definitely just like, oh, if I was thinner, maybe I could. I don't know what he's thinking, but at the same time, regardless, where your human nature and kindness came through was that even though that guy's values didn't align with your values, and he was, and what was previously in previous generations would have been called, not a hedonist. What is it called? They're not part of your religion. I'm missing the word here. What's the word? Anyway,
I don't know.
They were not. They have different values.
Sure.
right? And you recognize that. You could have been like, fuck this guy. He should have learned how to do that. And you had every right to do that. But you were kind enough to decide, even this guy who has different values than I do, I'm going to help him.
Yeah.
I think that story is as simple as it may be. I think it shows a great sign of character for yourself. So I'm patting you on the back.
Appreciate
but as
it.
well as I think it's a great example of what true non-judgment is. Non-judgment is not thinking, isn't avoiding thinking that person's fat.
Yeah. It's
true
despite
non-judgment.
thinking,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's despite thinking that he's fat.
And I think it's that. I think it's, oh, maybe there is a ping of jealousy as a human. I'm not perfect, but it's then despite that, not letting that be the way I see the world. I'm not jealous of his success. I'm happy for it. I'm happy with you telling me you have a top pod. I'm like, let's fucking go. I say, let's go, as if it has anything to do with me, because it's like my friend's like killing it and shit. It's like, this just comes back to, I don't know. Like, I feel like I've been in environments and around people that aren't doing shit that I admire. And then when I feel like I've put time and effort into surrounding myself with people who are doing shit that I admire, and then they are exceeding fucking, like, I'm like, yeah, let's go. We're raising our standards. We're leveling up, even though it has nothing to do with me. Like, a rising tide raises all ships. If anything, I'm inspired. I'm like, oh, that's possible. Someone I know. There's a study in Outliers that talks about, it's the Drake effect. There's no artist out of Toronto. Drake pops off. There's like 16. Like, people just need to know it's possible. And I think that's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who are fucking killing it. And
that's
then
a big thing.
And then
that's
to be humble enough to be like,
life.
Yeah, like, I don't know, to be, it's easier to feel the jealousy. It's easier to not go on the run. Right. But to surround yourself and to have the standards for yourself, which is a work of progress and not fucking perfect. But it's like,
and I think it's really unhealthy as well when you disassociate yourself from someone so completely. For example, my mother, I love her to death. She is, as much as I love her, she is a little bit dumb. And here's something that most humans do. And this is the normal human nature side of her. When she looks at celebrities, she cannot fathom how someone got to that level. So she assumes that they've done blood sacrifices, human sacrifices, that they're eating babies, because there's no other way that they could have gotten to that point. She really believes in all the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy when you let that go to such a deep level that you separate yourself from someone else. It can lead to actual delusion, because there's no way you remove yourself from the possibility of that success. And I think that my mother could have chosen. Well, first off, she didn't want to be an actress per se, but there must have been some form of jealousy in celebrity, like in that notion of being a celebrity, that caused her to overthink this to begin with, right? But
it's so much easier.
That's crazy.
It's so much easier to be like, oh, Dee Kei sacrificed babies and drank their blood, and that's why he has a top or whatever. Like, that's why he's as opposed to like, he fucking busted his ass. He like there's so many fucking factors, and it's like, it's so much harder for people to be like, oh damn, he, like Joe Rogan, all he did was just like record conversation. Now there's millions of podcasts. It's like,
it's crazy.
It's like,
it's crazy.
This is why I just feel like it's like, get everyone out of your mind. Moses part the Red Sea, and just like, where do I want to go? Like, and then get there, and then you'll find that people will get inspired by that. And that, obviously, this has taken like literally years and years of like consuming people who I've admired from podcasts and books. And I still do it because I know there's more to learn, and having these kind of conversations. But I think like, it's very easy to get stuck in our ways. Like, that's part of the importance of like remaining open-minded and remaining humble and not being so sure of yourself. Like, I'm almost wary of people who are so arrogant and confident. Oh, this is how everything's done. Because it's like, that, I'm pretty sure Blockbuster didn't think that they were going to be gone. Like, at a certain point, just because you've gotten to a certain place, like, you can, I'm sure there's lots of people who have run marathons. There's lots of people who've exited the Navy SEALs. Jocko Willink talks about this, and then they end up becoming overweight. It's like, Chad Wright, he's a Navy SEAL. He says, you can't sail today's ship on yesterday's winds. Oh, back in my day, who gives a fuck? Back in high school, 10 years ago, 5 years, cool. It's like, and that's why it's like, what am I doing today? What can I get done today? Fuck, I woke up late. All right, what can we do now? Day's not over. Like, All right, fuck. All right, I'm going to plan tomorrow today. I'm going to win the day ahead of time. I'm going to get my, like, I don't know. Yeah.
And it's inspiring as someone that is East Asian and grew up with Buddhist principles. Where there's a simple Buddhist teaching that says, anxiety comes from fear of the future, depression comes from longing
Worry.
of the past.
Mm.
Yes, I love that. There's
Yeah.
something, and I think no matter what background you're from, I think studying the teachings of Buddha is so practical, and is a really great balance to traditional European, Middle Eastern, or any sort of those sort of standard Christian, Judeo-Christian value sets. I think it's incredibly important. Yeah, dude, I love the direction that you're going in, dude. It's human, man, to be human. Oh
Yeah.
man, we're fucking up so much, and I love it. And here's the thing: it's no small thing to overcome, to take responsibility again. That is
Right.
no small, simple task. That is no small, simple task. I do think that is very difficult. I do think that it is very possible. And I think in all of this as well, it's okay. And this has been my theme recently. I think it's okay and even borderline necessary to have a little bit of arrogance. I think for
Sure.
very intelligent people, I think for very intelligent people and aware people like you, I think that there's something about being too aware that hurts you, that hurts us. I think
Yeah.
there's something about, I think you need to intentionally be a little bit delusional, to be a
It's
little overconfident.
yeah.
I think that when you see somebody doing something that you believe is impossible at this current day, I think it takes a little bit of arrogance to see that and desire for the same thing. I think it's okay. I think that's an okay amount of arrogance and delusion. I think that's important.
I agree. You have to fuck, what podcast was I listening to? I think David Senra on the Founders podcast. He talks about I wrote it down. He said belief, where is it? Champions behave like champions before they're champions. Right? Like the idea of like also, I love this quote: success is measured by your discipline and your inner peace. Like that is success. I don't know.
And inner peace. I like that addition.
Anyway,
I love that.
he essentially said like um, belief comes before, like you have to believe you can run 26.2 miles before you can run 26.2 miles. You have to think you can do it before you do it. And so in that sense, you have to have the delusion in that sense. I think it gets tricky though, especially in like a creative sense, like to say, oh yeah, like, okay, I can, I'm going to make one song and I'm going to win a Grammy. Like, I think that's, I guess that's coming back to what you said about the conscious and knowing that you've put the work in, whether or not you win the Grammy, right? Knowing you're worthy of it, whether or not you win it or whatever.
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy as far as that goes. I think a Grammy and plaques and things of that nature at a certain degree, when you have when you're taking responsibility for your life and you got that inner peace that you even brought up. I love that. The difference between me and Grammy winning me is a matter of time. That's all it is. I've whittled it down to only be time.
It's also not up to you. Like that is intrinsically something someone else has to say, hey, you're worthy of, which ultimately doesn't dictate your worth. So it's kind of this like, it's this bullshit metric that like we all want because we respect people that have them, but we respect people because the champions act like champions before they're champions. We respect them regardless of it. They just happen to have it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
I love that. Yep, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Oh yeah. All right. I want to ask like a couple more questions and wrap this up. I want to be respectful of your time. I do really appreciate you making the time for doing this. It's been a challenge in overcoming my own like anxiety and worry with navigating this because this is new. So I love it. Like just having a dope conversation. I know we already have these kind of conversations anyway. So I love hearing your perspective and thoughts. What is the best piece of advice you ever heard?
The best? I'm not sure. I think the best is depending on what the season of my life. I think it depends. Different parts of my life. Best piece of advice. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
All right, let's come back.
Maybe be present. Just stay present.
I like that.
Something. Maybe it's honestly as well. Like I think along with being present is just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Don't overthink.
Have fun. That's definitely something that resonated. I think just reminding, like, right now my kid's job is to play. It's like at what point is that not the job? Like, you know what I mean? Like
we're playing now. We're playing now.
Right.
We're taking on different identities as podcasters.
Sure.
We're trying these identities out as influencers. We're testing these identities out, and we're seeing if we like it or not. This is play. This is play. It's adult play, but it's play nonetheless. It's intellectual play, but it's play nonetheless.
I love that. Okay,
we're testing out ideas. There you go.
Yeah. It's experimentation. What's the worst piece of advice you've ever heard?
Don't spend time with your children when they're young, because they won't remember their young ages. Their young years.
I love that.
Yeah, that's the fucking most retarded piece of advice I've ever heard from any sane adult ever. And it's not, I didn't just hear it once either.
Really?
That sort of logic. And it's not just said, it's also seen. You see a lot of people who work like that. It's insane.
I respect your balance. I respect like your balance. I think you've created that for yourself. And I think most people haven't done the work, and they're operating from this conformity of balance. Okay, I'm gonna boom. Okay, I got this. Like,
I also think it's not a binary solution, meaning like you don't pick career or your family. I think that you can equally do both with a little bit of thought.
Yeah.
Honestly, just a small little bit of thought. I think that when people allow their lives to take control of them, that's when that happens. And I think
coming back to boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, that's like the most stupid thing I've ever heard. Also, my dad also used to say you can sleep when you die. That's also fucking retarded advice. My Down syndrome son knows that that's retarded advice. You know what I'm saying? That's some dumbass. Get your sleep, boys and girls. Get your sleep. Get your sleep. Have the responsibility and the discipline to sleep on time.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Love it.
The world would be a much better, less neurotic place if everybody was well rested every single night. God damn.
Yeah.
Imagine how few Karens would be out in these streets.
Just got their 8 hours.
They got their 8 fucking hours every night, dog.
For real. Yeah.
Get your fucking sleep.
So,
holy shit.
So what, you've got the podcast, music, you've got just kind of like takeaways and plugs, just kind of like round it out, finish it up. What plug all the things.
Oh, like where people can find me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, if you like music, if you're interested in music, or if you want to hear just more from stupid bullshit coming out of my mouth, go check out the Mixing Music Podcast. #1 post-production audio podcast in the world. If you're a songwriter, producer, or a mix engineer, or just want to get involved and turn your audio hobby into a career, mixingmusicpodcast.com. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everything at DEEKEI Mixes, DK Mixes. That's right. You can also find me under Daddy D. Yeah, there you go. Those are the plugs.
Let's go.
And on that note, dude, yeah, you can find me on the interwebs. And if you don't see me, if you have to search for me to find me, that means I'm not doing my job right. So if I'm doing my job right, you don't have to do no looking. I'm gonna pop up when you want me the least. I'm gonna show up on your Instagram algorithm, on your YouTube algorithm. I'm working my ass so hard to be in your life when you don't want me to be. That's what I'm trying to do.
There it is.
Hopefully you don't have to do any digging.
Amazing. I love that. That's that pride shit. That's that like confident, arrogant shit. I know my shit is valuable. Like you're gonna find it. if you don't search for it. Like it's gonna somehow end up on the right. Like I know I have value to provide, so
Of
I love
course.
that.
Dude, I'm not gonna tell you, there's been a few DMs that have made me cry more than one tear. You know, just really, really heart-wrenching things like, I've been having a difficult time and your podcast has helped me out. I
So
needed to be called a bitch. Yeah, I get that a lot because I call a lot of
really,
people bitches. Yeah. I'm the guy that calls. I'm the friend that everybody calls to be called a bitch. That's to get their shit. To be honest, you know, I'm an honest friend. I try to be.
me too.
Um, and dude, yeah, I don't think most people need or even want what I offer, but I
Mm.
think that if you feel any sort of draw to anything that I'm saying, I might have exactly what you need. And if I could be the vessel to give what you need to you, I am honored and blessed and grateful.
Cheers to that. I definitely recommend it. I'm gonna be checking out. I love the short form clips too. It's just like
Hell yeah.
sound bites of advice too, which is great.
And the recent ones, I'm trying to derive some controversy, dude. I'm trying to some audio controversy, some nerdy shit controversy.
Amazing. Beautiful. I appreciate you making the time. I'm excited to
I
see your
appreciate you.
continued growth and success.
Yeah, and I appreciate you having me on and taking the time to eventually edit and upload this podcast. It's no small thing. I know what it takes.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. I'm honored.
Thank you very much. All right. That's the pod.